me feeling like I'm Akademiks.
You could have a sidebar. They're now having a sidebar. Okay. That's kind of interesting.
And after Cassie's mom stepped down, a man who goes by the name, wait for it, The Punisher. The Punisher is an exotic dancer and former sex worker whose real name is Shereé Hayes. Mr. Hayes told the jury that he got his nickname playing basketball, but his photos, they seem to tell a different story for why he may be using that name today. Ooh, kind of safe for work, almost not safe for work. I wouldn't put it up at work, but that's the Punisher, y'all. Mr. Punisher testified that he was hired by Diddy and Cassie for 8 to 12 different times, things like episodes.
Freakoffs.
And he was meant to create a sexy scene that would last for hours. He said that Diddy called all the shots in these episodes. He didn't call them freakoffs, but he described what we've heard as freakoffs. He never saw any cameras, he said. He didn't see any violence. And he said, although Cassie would sometimes wince or sigh at some of the sex directions that came from Diddy, he said it didn't seem as though Cassie was there against her will. Again, this is a prosecution witness, so that's kind of, that's on the fence there. He does certainly corroborate the Freakoffs and what happened in the Freakoffs, but that whole business about, to him, he wasn't sure if Cassie was into it or not, but he did.
That's why, and I'm wondering, I think it was about some of the weird kinks. That's why they brought him up there, but I'm wondering why he was even a government witness, because he's kind of testifying that he didn't see anything that made it feel like it was, like she was being coerced. He even said that she had fun. Remember, he testified that one time he's putting in that work on her, and Cassie sits forward like Cassie's trying to get more of that dang-a-lang up in her pussy. You know what I mean? So it's like Cassie was enjoying it. She was very active in it too.
Did hear that she winced and that she sighed as Diddy gave a lot of those directions. By the way, the Punisher also said that he never saw Diddy take drugs, never saw that he seemed drunk or high, which is exactly what prosecutors are trying to show, that this was not just an out-of-control, party of an enlisted megastar, but instead was a clear-eyed criminal enterprise. And I mentioned it off the top of the show, so I'm happy now to introduce the man who spent the better part of today on the witness stand. Shereé the Punisher Hayes joins me now live. Mr. Hayes, it's really good of you to be here. Thank you so much for doing this. I can imagine you've had a hell of a day.
Definitely a challenging day today.
So tell me a little bit about it. How was it? How'd you feel up there? Give me a summary and a description of what that day was like for you.
Well, wait, is this a Punisher? Who's this? Oh, this is him, right?
Who spent the better part of today on the witness stand. Shereé the Punisher Hayes joins me now live. Mr. Hayes, it's really good of you to be here. Thank you so much for doing this. I can imagine you've had a hell of a day.
Definitely a challenging day today.
So tell me a little bit about it. How was it? How'd you feel up there? Give me a summary and a description of what that day was like for you.
Well, it's very nerve-wracking. There's nothing you can do to really prepare yourself for that type of environment. Very tense scenario, very serious atmosphere, and I just kept a mind frame of from the time I've been contacted by investigators. It's just give my version of the truth, what I can remember to the best of my ability, and that's what I tried to do today.
So I know that you talked about this on the stand, but I want to just sort of flesh it out with you a little, because we get court sketches. There's no cameras in court, so it's really good to have you in person. When you say that it was clear that Diddy was directing the sex scenes and the sex acts, because as you described, it started off as just a sexy scene, but it progressed into actual sex over the course of the Freakoffs. What kind of direction did you get the sense? Aggressive, mean, demanding, or just, hey, this is kinky, let's do this?
Not even as I described in the text. They were very subtle. Mr. Combs was always basically across the room, and it would be in a low tone, and it would just be suggestive. It was nothing aggressive, nothing that would create some sort of scenario that this was unnatural between them. Obviously, a sexual scenario with a couple is not the norm, but it's something that I had heard about before. And there's some couples that get into this, and in hindsight, if there were no accusations, I would have saw it as completely natural.
Can you repeat that? You would have seen it as what?
If there was no accusations, like in hindsight, all this stuff is in hindsight. Like in the moment, I didn't see it as anything but a couple doing something risque, and Cassie as a partner trying to create a fantasy for who I believed was her husband, and for the majority of this.
So at one point in your testimony, I think you mentioned, and I was just reading transcript because, of course, there's no cameras. You mentioned that Sean Combs was slightly aggressive in his tone, and that Cassie would sigh or wince at some of his direction. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, I understand that you're getting it in parts. It was quite a long testimony. When the sighing and the wincing was associated with, some of the direction was very specific, and it could be one after the other in terms of move the candle to the left, move it a little more, move it a little more, and now move your body a little more, stuff like that. And it was kind of unnatural for a scenario where you're trying to create a sexual situation. So my understanding or my interpretation of it in the moment was frustration with the repeated directions.
So it felt to you when you were there like it was frustration, but it did not feel to you when you were there like she did not want to be in the situation she was in with you?
It did not.
The other question I have for you is, I think I read that this...
By the way, that's very... So I'm going to pause here again. And I'm wondering, as these sexual... first of all, here's the thing, too. These sex workers are men. I'm wondering if their natural inclination, because you got to remember, if one of these guys testifies like, yeah, it feels like she wasn't doing it, well, you're the one fucking her, right? Like, so are any of these guys going to testify saying that, oh, no, it didn't feel consensual? Because if they testify that, you just admitted you raped her. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, I do think there's going to be a basis of, yeah, she may have not looked happy, but she wanted to do this, right? Because I don't think none of these guys would go up there, and I don't know if they have lawyers themselves, but if they go up there and then be like, yo, she was in tears, like, I could tell she didn't want to do this. She never said yes. Like, if you say that, nigga, you raped her. I mean, Diddy instructed you to do it, but you did it. You get what I'm saying? So and I see some people say they probably have immunity to that. I mean, would you even? This is one of the biggest trials of life. Do you want to admit that you did that?
Began in was it right 2012 that the first time you were hired?
That's correct.
So that would seem fairly early on, perhaps in the Freakoffs in their relationship, and it felt to me like in the beginning you did not actually have any kind of sex with Cassie in front of Diddy in those hotel rooms. It was just performative, but that it graduated in the later Freakoffs to sexual acts. Did it seem to you, now that you're hearing a lot more of the story, that this was the beginning of the whole Freakoff adventure for them, that they were kind of figuring it out themselves as well, and that maybe it progressed a lot further and got a lot less appealing to Cassie, maybe later after you had moved on and weren't in the picture?
So I'm instructed to not necessarily follow any of the details, so I just really know what my interaction with was. And it was always like almost a start over scenario, because like I said in my testimony, it wasn't consistent. Like I would get called maybe once every 4 months, so long periods of time would go in between. So it would definitely be kind of like an odd situation, but not in a way where I can assess there was some sort of progression that went on from the time we started to the time we ended. It was pretty consistent all the way through.
Well, may I commend you in following the orders of the court and not having consumed a lot of information about this before your testimony, because that would have been an easy question for you to answer had you known all all the background, right, that we're all learning in court. So congratulations and good for you. You're a model witness, and I appreciate you doing that. That's true justice. I do want to press a little bit on this aspect of from the first Freakoff until the last Freakoff that you did you sense that they were getting more practiced at it and that it was a lot more sexual right away? First it was performative and just, a show, and then it became actual sex towards the end. Was there anything different between episode 1 and, say, episode, maybe maximum 12? That seems to be the max number that you performed with them. Did 12 seem a lot more, like it was a machine that was ready to go?
Actually, the opposite. It was very routine, like a very consistent routine. It always started the same, some sort of a scenario where we would be across from each other on couches that were covered with sheets. It always had to start with a baby oil, with me rubbing it on myself, her doing the same, escalating to us rubbing each other, and then escalating into small sex acts, leading into actual penetration. It's very methodical and pretty much the same. I can't say there was a different energy from start to finish. It pretty much.
Yeah. So other than this guy talking now, we haven't, I think the reporters, they don't want to be too, descriptive, but I've always wondered, like, what's the steps to the Freakoff? Myron Gaines, if you didn't watch when me and him did our show together or did a stream together, he explained the steps to the Freakoffs. Apparently, there would be a masturbation session where they would just visually. So you come into the room. They said Diddy wouldn't be in the room sometimes at the time, right? Then Diddy would come into the room. They had to lather up in front of Diddy. They had to masturbate while looking at each other. Diddy would tell them how long when the dude couldn't ejaculate and Cassie couldn't climax either. Diddy would be verbally saying things. Hey, stop. Get closer. No more baby oil. Stuff like that. Then after that, they would be then almost like giving each other a massage. Then after that, he'll be like, yo, hey, listen, eat her out. Or he'll tell her, give him head. And he would instruct exactly how. You got to remember the messages I read yesterday. I got a bunch more today if we got time. Yeah, we'll definitely have time pretty much after the trial. Diddy would remember the message where Diddy said, number one, you don't want no secondhand dick. He didn't want the guy to fuck his girlfriend before he came over. He said to Cassie, you don't want the secondhand dick. And then also he said to Cassie, it was basically like, yo, he better hold that nut for us. You know what I mean? It's kind of like a vampire with blood. Diddy was like, he was a semen sucking, savage. You know what I mean? Like, he looked at these guys as a reservoir of man milk. And, that was the end. He required them to climax, even though in one situation, one of the prostitutes testified that somehow during the sex act, Diddy leaves to another room with her, and he goes there for a couple of hours. Look like he may have done whatever. And then he comes back out, and the guy says, Diddy says to the guy, do you need me to finish? So I guess it was a routine for Diddy to say, you need to ejaculate, oftentimes in her. Yeah. And that at that time, Diddy didn't request him to ejaculate, but usually Diddy requested ejaculation. So.
Stayed the course of whatever the criteria was from the first time going forward. And the first time was actually the only time there was an actual sexual interaction. And it was offered, as I said in my testimony, but I declined.
So one of the other escorts who had done some of the same things in these Freakoffs that you were hired for said that at one point, Sean Combs was very violent with Cassie, and that he took her in the other room, and that he heard slapping and beating, and that when they came out, Diddy wanted them to continue and finish strong. That was his words, apparently, allegedly, finish strong. But that the male escort couldn't. He said, I had erectile dysfunction at that point because of what I'd gone through. And I know, like, you wrote a whole book called In Search of Freezer Meat about that, about erectile dysfunction and how difficult it can be. And I think you might have mentioned that it actually happened to you during one of your Freakoffs with Diddy and Cassie, that you had the same kind of issue. Was it at all based on violence or aggression?
No, it was not.
Now, keep in mind, this guy is also an author. This guy is also an author. So he wrote about a book. He wrote a book about erectile dysfunction, and I think this is why he's kind of doing a press tour. We haven't seen any witness get off the stand and want to do press. He wants to do a press tour because he already has a book out, and his book is about erectile dysfunction. He actually mentions Diddy and Cassie in there, not by name. He kind of recreates a scenario and calls them a married couple. Now, he probably mentions a lot of some of his actual personal anecdotes in there from dealing with other people, but there's a couple that supposedly represents Diddy and Cassie in his book that he calls married, and he would talk about his time of, like, you know, pleasure in, I guess, both of them.
It was not based on violence and aggression. I think for me, there was no true.
And yes, the book is called In Search of Freezer Meat.
At times, for me, I could not get into a place of intimate connection. There was always a discomfort with, obviously, a male partner just being present, period. And then, like I said, with the direction, the move to the left, the move.
Also, yes, Kanye has texted me his song. I told him I'm posting on X, which I just did. We'll listen to the song after this.
To the right, to do this, to do that.
The song has YB on it. I haven't heard it yet, but he just texted to me.
In terms of me maintaining like an erotic space of being turned on or whatever, it was difficult. So it was just more of, it felt like acting opposed to a actual natural sexual scenario.
Did you ever know another escort by the name of Jules in LA?
The truth of the matter is, I was in a naive state. My very first interaction, I was told it was, she went by Janet. I had no idea who they were. And she introduced herself as Janet and said this was her birthday and this was something special her and her husband was doing. So the majority of the time, actually the entire time, even when I found out who they were initially, I really believed I was the only guy they were involved with. I thought this was some.
But had you ever heard of a?
Yeah, she's asking about the escort community. I don't know if these guys, like, in the meat slanging community for money. I don't know if they all know each other. That's the question she's asking. What he's saying is that he didn't know that Cassie and Diddy were doing this with other people. He thought he was just a lucky guy. And even after he found out it was Cassie and Diddy, he still thought he was the only one.
Yeah, had you ever heard of an escort named Jules?
I have not. I'm not in the male escort business. I'm actually a stripper that took a proposition, but is not somebody I would commingle with in terms of interactions.
And then last quick question, sir. Did they offer you, did the feds offer you immunity at all at any step of the way as they were, prepping you to be a witness for this trial?
No, there was no talk of immunity of anything. From what I understood, I was not charged with any crime or there was any issue where I would need immunity in regards to this matter.
Shereé Hayes, I can't thank you enough for being so forthcoming and candid and agreeing to talk to me on this program tonight. I really appreciate it.
I would have asked him one more question, and the question would have been, now that you do know who these people are, do you feel bad for Diddy or do you feel bad for Cassie? Because he seems pretty stoic. He seems like a great witness. He's just saying what it is. But I'm wondering if he leans towards the side of, man, y'all railroading that nigga. I was there. That nigga is not no fucking. He a little freaky, but he's definitely not no sexual trafficker rapist nigga. Like, y'all tripping. I'm wondering if he has some type of like he empathizes with Diddy, because I do believe Jules, who the prosecutor. No, the defense did a great job of saying the stripper Jules was in love with Cassie, low key, start feeling for her. So when you start feeling for her, you start, like, remember Cassie jumped on his lap, and he started making out with her after Diddy stormed out the room, and he said to Cassie, "Why don't you leave this nigga?" So he's almost like dirty macking, even though he's fucking her. You know what I mean? So he was almost like, "Yo, why don't you leave?" And she's like, "No, I can't leave." So after a while, I think that stripper started to and even admitted, or that escort even admitted that he would have been in a relationship with Cassie. Now, he claimed it was just because of her beauty, but you could tell he probably was there like, yo, why are you still with this guy? Like, you know, you could do better, that type of stuff. And that guy is going to lean in Cassie's direction because his relationship with them started to be uneven. By the way, this is why some people don't do threesomes, right? Because you bring supposed to be a neutral party, that party start aligning with one or the other, and they might even later on say, well, why you fuck with this person, right? And yeah, that person clearly, you could tell, was trying to describe a scenario where he didn't feel like Cassie was doing these things under her own recognition. It was mostly because Diddy was threatening her or allegedly forcing her to do these things. So he seems to be either neutral or maybe he's leaning Diddy's side a bit, in the sense of like, yo, I think y'all tripping on this guy.
Also appreciate you walking into federal court and getting up on a witness stand and talking about stuff that's pretty uncomfortable. You know, the justice system relies on witnesses being fair and truthful and doing what you did, no matter how hard it is, and it is real hard. So thank you so much.
Oh, no, my pleasure. I appreciate you having me, and thank you so much.
Can I ask you one quick question?
Somebody said that's not what the transcript read. What are you talking about?
Do you think
Sure.
Do you think Sean Combs is guilty of sex trafficking and
Okay,
and the crimes that he's actually accused of? And
I think he's going to answer it as a straight shooter. Here's the thing, too, before he says his answer. Even if he's leaning Diddy's side, I don't think he could be super pro Diddy. I'm going to tell you why. Number one, he was a government witness, right? Number two, he's trying to go on a tour to promote a book. He's forever going to be known as the male stripper that was in there, even though he's not the, I don't want to say lead male stripper, but he's one of the male strippers that was fucking Cassie. He's forever known as that. He's going to have some infamy. He's going to get paid for interviews. He's going to get paid for some interviews, right? Dan's a project. Going to find that nigga somewhere, okay? Or real life street stars or Vlad or somebody. Trust, this guy's going to get some interviews. He's going to generate money. And it's in his best interest to seem as neutral as possible, unless he wants to be the guy, which his testimony doesn't reflect it. Like the first stripper or escort that's going to be like, yeah, man, Diddy was fucked up type of shit. He's clearly on the side of Diddy pretty much did it. I wonder what his answer is going to be. I think he's just going to keep it straight.
racketeering?
I mean, again, like I said, I really, this has been a high place of anxiety for me. So it wasn't just being a good witness and follow directions. I really avoid the details. I think the totality of the situation for everybody involved is just extremely sad and difficult, and just a black eye experience on everybody involved. And I just think it's unfortunate. I don't have the legal understanding to levy the evidence and come to a determination of what I think or don't think. I just think it's an unfortunate situation for everyone.
Well, I am super appreciative. Thank you again, Shereé Hayes.
Anytime. Have a good day.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I wonder who would buy a book about ED. I think you would just go get it treated, right? Like, who would buy a book about erectile dysfunction? Just go get it treated. Or nigga, find a honey pack. God damn it, man. All right. By the way, you know what I forgot to play the other day? So Oddi did an interview. I think it was with News Nation, low key. Remember Jonathan Oddi? He did a new interview. He's in jail, but he did do a new interview, okay? Here we go.
So in May of 2018, a man named Jonathan Oddi opened fire at Donald Trump's Miami golf course and was shot and arrested by police. Now, Oddi said that he was in the middle of a bipolar episode. That's where it gets interesting. Later, while being questioned by Florida authorities, Oddi brought up something totally unexpected. He claimed that he'd been a sex slave for Sean Diddy Combs and Cassie Ventura. This video is courtesy of Real World Media. Take a look.
I had sex with Cassie and Sean. Basically, he would masturbate, tell me what to do with Cassie. I had like 15 encounters, and I heard lots of business. Because what they would do is Sean talks a lot on the phone and on the TV with speakers and stuff, and I was like a sex slave.
So at the time, Oddi's story seemed too far-fetched to believe. but not anymore. And now, in an exclusive interview, Oddi opens up to News Nation senior producer Allison Weiner about his claims, beginning with why he's agreed to talk now. Listen to this.
I felt bad because I got along well with her, and I think she's a decent person. And unfortunately, I had a suspicion that she was in a situation that she was in, but I wasn't sure. And now I understand what was going on in my life and what was happening. And him beating her up in the hotel shows me the type of individual he is, and confirms that everything that happened to me was true and correct and in line with his personality.
So, speaking to us from a Miami jail now, here is how Oddi says it all began for him.
I was a male Chippendale, a model Chippendale, you could say, and they called me for a show they called the agency that I work for to do a show. And then I went and did a show, and things led to them offering me more money to perform sexual acts. And that's it. That's how I basically got started. I get dressed like a police officer, I do a show, and they'll strip it down. And then, they offer me some more money. They offer me.
Who the fuck is writing? Like, bro, you're recording the thing. Why are you writing like you're in court? You're audio recording this shit.
Some money to do some extra stuff.
So Oddi did get specific about the extra stuff that he says Diddy wanted from him, and these specifics were consistent with what he told law enforcement during the 2014 interrogation. Here is how he describes the atmosphere and how frequently it happened.
Candles, sensual atmosphere, lights off. He would sit in a corner in a sofa, watch and masturbate. And he'd say, he'd tell her, give her instructions what to do to me. Perform oral sex, rub baby oil. Then he'd tell me rub baby on her, perform oral sex, and then have sex.
How many times did you have sex with Cassie?
Probably like 15 sessions.
And what did you get paid? How much?
It would be like 800 each time, each act. But sometimes they'll call me twice. I'll leave, and then 3 hours later, they will call me, come back.
And so Oddi claimed that the sessions were drug-fueled, and that his concern for both Cassie and himself led him to get one of their sessions on video. Listen to what he says about that.
Ooh. Oh, you secretly.
Why did you decide to record or video?
Oh, so he recorded this whole time. I thought that he stole Diddy's video, and that's why Diddy was upset. So I guess he decided to record for himself.
Because after she passed out, I decided to record that. So in the event anything worse happened, like if she died, or anybody died, it will be on camera, it will be on video, what happened. So I wouldn't be responsible for any of that.
So you were beginning to worry about her doing drugs. I mean, like about her dying, or him dying, or somebody dying from the drugs, and that you would be held responsible. So you brought a video. You brought your phone?
No, I had a USB video memory stick done like a spy shot, and I put it in a wallet on the table, in the living room table of the hotel downstairs. I filmed it, and it had everything I described, and it had her threatening me. But he was telling her what to say. We had an argument. When I left, I knew they were paranoid. So I want to guarantee my safety. So I text him. I said, "Hey, if anything happens to me, I got evidence I'm being with you." At the settlement table, there was a lot of irregularities. Okay, It was my first settlement. So they brought me in, and Diddy had a T-shirt with 2 men in ski masks pointing, making gun signs. Okay, and it was black and white, and it had a red frame. Okay, but that's the way he operates. He communicates, threatening you, like saying, "I'm gonna have you killed."
So Oddi says to prevent the recording from going public, that's what he was just talking about. Diddy had him sign.
Wait, I missed that. I had to answer a call real quick. So wait, how did he record the video? I missed that part. I know y'all heard it, but I missed it. Hold on.
Anything worse happened.
Okay, I know why you
Like
recorded.
if she died, or anybody died, it will be on camera. It will be on video. What happened? So I wouldn't be responsible for any of that.
So you were beginning to worry about her doing drugs. I mean, like about her dying or him dying or somebody dying from the drugs, and that you would be held responsible. So you brought a video. You brought your phone?
No, I had a USB video memory stick done like a spy shot, and I put it in a wallet on the table, in the living room table of the hotel I was upstairs. I filmed it, and it had everything I described, and it had her threatening me. But he was telling her what to say. We had an argument. When I left, I knew they were paranoid. So I wanted to guarantee my safety. So I text him. I said, "Hey, if anything happens to me, I got evidence I'm being with you." At the settlement table, there was a lot of irregularities. Okay, It was my first settlement. So they brought me in, and
Hey, somebody tell me.
Diddy had a T-shirt with 2 men in ski masks pointing, making gun signs. Okay, and it was black and white, and it had
By the way, King Jafar, thank you for the gifted sub on Kick, and also Malcolm Reed, Little John, thank you for all the gifted subs you've done, and also Shiesty Nurse 35. Appreciate you guys.
a red frame. Okay, but that's the way he operates. He communicates, threatening you, like saying, "I'm gonna have you killed."
So Oddi says to prevent the recording from going public, that's what he was just talking about. Diddy had him sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, in exchange for $5 million in hush money. This was in 2014. The Daily Mail ran a screenshot of what appears to be a signature page signed by Sean Combs and Oddi. We have not been able to obtain the document or verify its contents or authenticity, nor have we been able to verify the existence of the video that you heard him talking about. Now, according to Daily Mail's report, the timing coincided with a spending spree by Oddi of Florida real estate, and it also coincided with Oddi's divorce. His ex-wife tells the Daily Mail that she found out about his windfall only after their split.
Basically, the day the incidents happened at Trump National Doral, I had to take medication, and I'd been diagnosed bipolar, but I wasn't sure I was bipolar, and I had an episode, and basically, I've been taking medication every day. I've been stable. I had no issues in jail. I've done excellent behavior in jail. I feel I'm ready to come out to society and be productive. member of society.
Yo, that crazy shit, he stopped now.
All right, so Oddi remains locked up in a Florida jail, still awaiting trial on charges of attempted murder, armed burglary, aggravated assault, and armed grand theft. Regarding the sex slave claims, we've reached out to Sean Diddy Combs' team for comment and have yet to hear back. And thank you to Allison Weiner.
Okay,